Hey, what's up, guys? Good morning. God bless. God is good all the time, and all the time, God is good. I don't know. Just this morning, I want to encourage somebody out here today with just to remind you today that God is so good, that God is so hearing, that He's so close, and that He's so personal, that He's a big God, that He's a sovereign God, that He's the God that made the stars and the universe, but yet He's right here. That it says He knocks on the door of our heart. You know, I can't help but think about it. I can't help but think about how big God is, how good, how great He is, and yet just how close He is to us. That He whispers because He's here. That He whispers because He's so close, because He's so intimate. You know, I can't help but think about how He's a God that made the stars, that the stars cry out His worship, but yet He whispers. You know, I can't help but think, like, you know, with everything that's going on, just to be reminded of the goodness of God, just to be reminded of who God is, of God's character, that just shows just how good He is, that God is great, that we serve a great big God, yet His love for us is so immense. You know, just thinking about yesterday's message, how they sit there and they talk about Jonah, and they talk about how Jonah was in the whale, and how Jonah knew God, and yet he ran away. I can't help but think about how here in this place, here in this season that we're in, how God is so good. That He's speaking to you, some of y'all Jonahs. That He's speaking to some of y'all today, talking about how God is working things out. That God is making a way where there was no way. That God is making a way through the wilderness. That He's making a way through the seas. That He's making a way where you cannot see it, where you cannot imagine it, where faith steps in, where nothing else makes sense, but so yet we believe. We believe that God's gonna make a way. Excuse me this morning. I can't help but think about Jonah. I can't help but think about how when nothing else made sense out here, he trusted in God, that he knew God, and he knew God's character. You know, I think about how Jonah chapter 2 verse 2, he says, I called to the Lord, and He answered me. Let me put this into context for y'all. Jonah's sitting there in the middle of the whale's stomach, in the stomach of the big fish, and he says, I called to the Lord, and He answered me. And I rejoiced. Jonah's in the middle of the stomach. Jonah's in the middle of his storm. Jonah's in the middle of something that he cannot see the light out of. And yet he says, I called to the Lord and He answered me. A few verses later he says, and I rejoiced in the Lord. You know, that God is working things out. Jonah knew this. You know, I think about Peter, how Peter steps out into the water with Jesus, and yet Peter knew that Jesus was on the water, so he said, this is where I need to be at. That if this is where Jesus is at, this is where I need to be at. That if this is where the Spirit of God is, that this is where I will be today. This is where I will be in this season. This is where I will be in this next few days. This is where I will be these next few weeks. This is where I will be when society starts to log back down. This is where I will be when everything starts to go against me.